And the description, they attacked our lands like shrieking eagles. So Bettina will sing in meter and pitch in ancient Greek, and then we'll get to talk to her about it afterwards.
Roterum faust, efantes potocreseias, hameras blefarum, dircaion hyper retrum molusa. Ton leucas pinargolicon, pauta panta, pansagiae, figata protromon, oxiteroi, kinei sasa, halinoi. Unefameterai, gai polineces, artes legion, exam philogon, eigagegeinos, oxioclatson, aetus eiscan, os hyperrepta, leuceis ionos, terugis teganos, polon metoplon, xinthi pocomois poritesin.
Thank you, Bettina. That was wonderful. And one of the things I really enjoy about the way you do that is the way that the rhythm and the pacing changes during the song, right? That's not something you get with reading the Greek unless you read it aloud and you really learn some of the meter. So I'm gonna ask you to unmute so you can answer some questions. And Anna, what did you think, or what questions would you ask Bettina about her process?
Oh, Bettina, that was so beautiful. Thank you so much for that. And so haunting. I think I was thinking about sort of the moment of this chorus, and I was wondering how you felt your way into it. Were you sort of what was your thinking process in terms of where you were as you were doing that song?
There are so many layers, and the most important to me is always the lyrics. And so the sun's first rays, it is an invocation, and it's just so the lyrics are so beautiful because it does start with the beauty of the sun falling on all of the land and describing the streams and so on, and then suddenly it starts talking about the sun falling on the army, and so I have to kind of think, what is the chorus doing at this point? There is a sort of stop, like they have to switch over, and I can't dance for y'all. So I'm thinking, okay, so I have to convey somehow that it's switching mood. And then I love the part where that rhythm, it suddenly switches to a very metric, very even one, because before it's a harder one, it's a harder rhythm, more challenging, the first part. And then when it goes into the other part.
Into the anapest, yeah.
Then, yes, and could you explain maybe what an anapest is to the audience?
So it's a more regularized, I suppose, the simple way to think about Greek meter, if there is any simple way, is between so-called stickic meters, which are very regularized and just do a line, and that are sort of sung in the sense that they're metrical, that they're poetry, but they aren't what we would think of as music in our sense. They're more equivalent to sort of recitative in opera or something like that, where it still has a voice, a song voice, but is, as Aristotle says, closest to regular speech. And then what we tend to refer to as lyric passages, or some people call melic passages, which work with kola, so not as lines, but as sort of units of rhythm, units of song that are really song. And those, in most tragic choral bits, are done as strophic responsions. So one stanza and another. And this parados is unusual because it follows that structure. It has two strophes and antistraces that are matched, but it has a melic portion and then an anapestic portion, which is somewhere in between those two sort of stickic and melic bits. So it's song, but it's meant to be, sometimes people say sort of anapests are for walking rather than dancing. And this one, some people think that anapestic bit, and it's not just simpler in terms of the rhythm and the music, but simpler in terms of the Greek as well, more readily intelligible. And so there's some thought that maybe this would have been the chorophios when we're talking about the chorus, right? There's all of the chorus together, and then the chorus leader, and his role as a distinct figure is unclear, but sometimes people like to think that his singular voice is coming out.
So since you're talking about sort of the leader in the group, one of the things that's amazing about Bettina's performance is that she brings together the melody, the accompaniment, and the words, right, in one package, right? But if we're thinking about this performance of Sophocles, chances are we had 15 people coming out in the parados, right? So I have two questions for both of you. So one is, how do you envision the accompaniment and singing working together during this march, during the Anapes in this performance? Bettina, how would you try to do that now? So I'm not asking you to clone yourself, but if you could try and find 15 other people to work with you, what would the level of difficulty be like in scaling up what you just did to a full chorus?
You know, I was fortunate enough to have watched the streaming of the National Greek Theater the other day on Saturday, and it's pretty much what I thought it would be like, just like maybe a circle. And this particular, the anapestic here is perfect for that because it is describing an army that's attacking. So I think there is a very sort of marching motion, and with very minimal, they in the National Greek Theater streaming, they just had these rods. And so I loved it because it's like these rods could be anything, you know, weapons and what have you. So I could really picture them just walking around in a circle and somehow doing these gestures.
Mm.
Because it's very rhythmic, and I tried to make the melody in this one way simpler, to go with the rhythm, to go with the idea that it is chorus is very much together, marching together, and so on. That's pretty much how I pictured it in my mind.
So Anna, in the ancient world, what instruments would have been accompanying them, and would the chorus have been carrying them with them?
No, so far as we